Ivan with the Lacroix Cruiser. Today we're going to convert our trike into an E-trike. Now, Sylvia and I are getting a little older. We like to ride our trikes, but sometimes it can get a little difficult. Or we want to go a longer distance than our legs will allow us to go. So that's why we're wanting to convert to an E-trike. But unfortunately, E-trikes are very expensive. Same thing with e-bikes. With a bit of research, I was able to find a kit that you can buy on Amazon, a couple different parts, for around $350. That is a more affordable solution than buying a new E-trike or getting some of the hub motor or mid-drive kits that can cost $1,000 or more. So here's an easy way to convert your bike. Follow along and let's have some fun. Everybody's favorite part, I guess, is unboxing. So let's unbox it. First part is a bracket. This is the bracket that will hold it to the bike. And they call this a universal bracket. Unfortunately, it universally doesn't fit on any bicycle. But with a bit of modification, we can get it to fit on a trike quite easily. Next is the motor itself. So this is the motor that attaches to the bracket like so, and this is what's going to be driving the bicycle. Now, it works very easily, and you'll see that in a few seconds. These two rubber pieces are designed to hold this gear onto the wheel. Now, this is the other end of the drive system. And this goes on the left side of your bicycle tire. And then with these rubber inserts, they go on either side of the spokes, and you can screw this onto your spokes. Luckily on our bicycle, it's set up for a disc brake. This will replace the disc brake that isn't on our trikes. The rear on the trike doesn't have a brake. This will replace the brake. So very lucky there. And in our case, we're not going to be using this one. This one is designed for a 26-inch wheel. We have 20-inch wheels, so we have a smaller one. Also in the box, we have the controller. This is what tells the motor how to work and what to do, etc. So, very important little piece. And finally, we have the throttle. So this is what will make it go forward or stop or however you want to look at it. Now, one thing that's missing in this box are instructions. They do not give you instructions. This is a universal kit. You have to be a little handy to figure it out. But again, it's very simple. Other little items in the packages, we have some bolts. We have other bolts. We have the chain and some miscellaneous connectors. So all that, we'll put the stuff we don't need, the packaging back in the box. And we can get rid of that box. In this box is the battery. Now you can get different sizes of batteries. We opted for a 10 amp hour battery. So it comes with this little bag that you can strap up to your bicycle. Inside of this, a lithium-ion battery and the little case, and of course, the charger for it. Again, more packaging that we won't need anymore. Next, we need a bicycle. First thing we're going to do is attach the bracket to the motor. as simple as removing 3 screws from the motor and putting the bracket on. And this will allow us to align it and see how the universal bracket isn't really universal. As I mentioned before, everything I've seen on YouTube about this motor is that it works great, but it's not so easy to install. So we'll see if it lives up to that legend of being not easy to install. Now the bracket is on the motor, and the motor goes here. And we can see that it's not going to align. No need to worry. Like I said, this is a universally, it doesn't fit anything bracket, but it's close, not far off. So the first thing we need to do is on the hub here, put the gear on. So we know that the motor is going to fit. It's going to require a bit of work, but we'll be able to do it. So now we have the axle bolt out of there. Now we have the wheel lifted out of its place, and this hub thankfully was originally fitted for a disc brake. We've applied the gear to the wheel hub. Couldn't be easier. And let's put the wheel back in its place, and then we'll see how much we need to modify the bracket to get the proper alignment. Wheel is back in place. And if we put this here where it's supposed to go, so we can see that between this gear and this gear, there's an offset that's around 3/8 of an inch. So we need to take care of that by modifying this bracket to space it out. Now, unfortunately, there's not enough length to the shaft to be able to just put it out like this, because if we could, that would be a lot easier. But that's a lot of space to take up, so we need to heat this bracket and bend it so we can get it to conform to the shape that we need. So we'll take the bracket off of the motor one more time, and then off to the vise to modify it slightly. So part one is done. Now we have to bend these back up the other way. There's a couple reasons for heating this up. First of all, it makes bending a lot easier. But secondly, if you don't heat your metal, you actually run the risk of tearing it. And if you do that, you're not going to have a fun day. So there we have it. The bracket is modified. Now we have a few other little things to do to the bracket. First of all, this one needs to be bent to match the angle of the arm on the trike. And this one, we're actually going to cut off because we're not going to use anymore. And then after that, let it cool down, sand it, and paint it so we have a nice looking bracket on the bike. So now the bracket is modified, sanded, let's go test fit, see if it works, and if it does, we'll paint it and do the rest. Now our universal bracket aligns. Let's put it on the motor and see how it holds up. Once we get confirmation that everything is lined up, we'll take the bracket off, paint it up so it looks all pretty and it doesn't rust on us. Excellent. So we have a bit of a offset that we'll need to bring out maybe 1/8 of an inch at most. That's going to give us a space for adjustment with washers. That we can take up quite easily. So off to the paint, and we'll see you back here. While the motor bracket is curing, we're going to install the throttle on this handle. So we need to take a few things off first to be able to put the throttle in place. This is the shifter for the rear derailleur. So we're actually going to be cutting this foam, reusing it, but we'll have to do it slightly differently. Now the shifter is safely out of the way. So this is the throttle, and as you can see, it works like that. And when I have my hand here, I'll be able to use my thumb to adjust it. I have to move a few things down a little lower on the bike so that I have space for my hand comfortably on the handle and the thumb. From there, we'll put our shifter back on. So a zip tie or two to hold the wires in place, or not the wires, but the wire and the brake cable. So the control wire will follow the shifter wire all the way down. We know this is going in a place where it doesn't contact anything, it doesn't get in anybody's way. So we'll use what the manufacturer had routed already. Before bolting all of this together, let's do a test. So unfortunately, none of this comes with instructions, but with a bit of deduction, we can see where everything goes. First of all, the battery plugs into the connector. The other large wire with the same style of connector goes into the motor. And then we have a whole bunch of them. And there's only one with a label, and it says power lock. And there happens to be one here with the label power lock. So we put those together. And then finally, there's one connector with 3 wires. There's only one of them. So there we go. Now we see that it's on, off, and so excellent. So our 36 volt, 450 watt motor is working. Excellent. That's what we needed to see. So let's unplug it here. I'll go get the bracket, we'll mount the motor, get the chain all settled in, and then we'll be able to finish the wiring and hook up the battery pack where it needs to be. So now we've confirmed that everything works, let's put it all together. Once we have this situated in place, we'll be able to adjust the chain. The chain comes a little too long. I've got a little chain brake that I always carry with me on my bike. That way, if I do have a problem with the bicycle chain, I can fix it. And this is no different. So with here, we know that this will be roughly around there, and we have a bit of adjustment built in. And my alignment is off maybe about 1/8 of an inch, which is what we wanted. That way we can put different washers in to act as spacers to get it to be exactly where we need it to be. So we have some stainless steel washers here. Put the other end on. Won't tighten it too much. Next, the irreversible part, drilling a hole in the bike. We need to have a hole here to be able to support this. So here we go. Now that I have it located, take this out of the way. So now we have the other end of the support in place. So this will allow us a bit of movement, a bit of play. This is slotted and so is this, so we can move it back and forth to adjust with the chain. Now, speaking of the chain, here it is. Now I know that it's too long. I'm going to remove at least 2 links and then come back and try it. I've measured it and I know roughly what I need to do. So we'll take 2 links out, we'll measure it, or we'll test it. If it fits, great. If it doesn't, we'll remove another link. So now we have the chain on, we have the bolt in place, but still have way too much loose in my chain. And one way of getting rid of that looseness is by tensioning it here. And now we have it nice and tight. So we're tightening up the other one, the other mounting point. Chain has about 1/4 inch of play, which is what we want. Everything is tight. We're now ready to wire it up. So the next step to wiring all this up is putting the box in. But the box doesn't quite fit in this bag with the battery unless we take these tabs off. So let me grind the tabs off. And once the tabs are ground off, we can put everything in that bag and secure the bag to the underside of the bicycle here. And I say bicycle, tricycle, you get the idea. So now the control box is slightly modified, not much. And we'll take the battery out of the bubble wrap. So 36 volt, 800 milliamp hours, 8,000 milliamp hours, sorry. So more than enough for what we need. We don't need a battery that's going to give us days of power. Our feet are still powering the bike, but this is just an assist. It's not the full power system of the bike. And this barely fits in here. Once we have all our testing done, these extra wires I'll be able to remove, and I'll shorten some of these wires because they're excessively long for what we need. Again, this is a universal kit, meaning they make it to fit everyone's bicycles. And it takes just a bit of adaptation to get it to fit anyone's bicycles. So I have the battery pack in place and some excessive wire. I'm actually going to leave the wire there for now. We're going to test ride the bike, make sure everything is working the way it should, and then I can come back at a later date and play with the wires. But in the meantime, a couple zip ties, that's all we'll need to get the wires locked in place. I'll get the seat, we'll put the bike on the ground, and we'll give it a test ride. For the meantime, we're just going to tie the wires up. That way they're not going to go anywhere. They'll be safe. And we want to confirm that this is actually where we're going to be keeping the battery. And if it is, then very simply, we'll adjust the wire length accordingly. But for now, the wire is zip tied out of the way. It's not going to go anywhere. It can't drag or fall. And actually we'll add a zip tie here. With the gears on the other side, it's very hard to get at this Velcro, so I'm going to use some pliers. So everything's tight. I'm just going to tighten this one last time. Make sure that we have the chain tensioned. Because if the chain is too loose, it's going to come off. So we don't want the chain coming off. Now let's put a seat and see where we can go. If you've never ridden a trike like this, they're extremely comfortable. It's a great way of traveling, and it's not much wider than your shoulders, so you don't have to worry about the width on the road. We have flags that we put in here for those occasions where we are driving and we want to be seen a little better, but nonetheless, you can see a pothole on the road when you're driving and move it around it, so you can see someone riding a trike. Trust me, even though we're lower, people still see us, and they see us quite well. first thing, you never want to start with the power. You always want to pedal. This isn't something, a full-on electric drive. This is an electric assist. So we'll start by pedaling, and once you get a bit of momentum, then you add the power. So going over some bumps, chain hasn't come off. I'm under full power. We'll have to do a speed test to see how fast we're actually going. So when it's under power, you hear that little whine. But without the power, it's very quiet. So here we have the final result. So the motor is installed, chain is aligned, battery pack is there. I still have to shorten the wires, but we're going to leave it that way for now. And there we have it. So our trike is now a motorized trike when we need it to be.